Hey everyone, my name is Sara Harberson. I'm America's college counselor. It's so good to see you all. Here on the East Coast, we have a huge snowstorm, so it's a nice night to really hang out, answer questions from all of you. Please let me know where you're coming from, what state, what country, if you're a parent, a student, what year in high school you are in. Obviously, I love to hear from all of you all across the country, all across the world. I've been doing these Facebook Lives for years. We save all of them. You can check them out on my Facebook feed, but also on my Facebook pages for Sara Harberson and Admissions Revolution, but also you can check them out on saraharberson.com. What we're going to be doing is a rapid fire Q&A tonight as usual. So if you have admissions questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I think we're going to get started. The first one. Hi, Sara. When do you think we will know if schools will continue test optional for the class of 2022? My guess is that if the pandemic continues the way it is, or if it stays stagnant for the next couple of months, that's really going to impact the class of 2022. And so if colleges are going to go test optional, we will probably begin to hear that, I would guess, in March and April. March and April are very big months for students to take the test if they are juniors in high school. So that's what I would anticipate. It is my hope that things actually get better, that things open up, that testing sites are open for students to take standardized tests. That is my hope. And if it doesn't happen in the spring, it might happen in the summer. And so my guess is colleges are probably going to wait to make that call about test optional policies. And I have a feeling we're not going to see nearly as many of those colleges adopt or extend their test optional policy for the class of 2022 as there were for the class of 2021. All right, next question. My son got deferred from Georgetown. When is the best time to submit a letter of continued interest? Should he contact his interviewer for input on the letter? So I just got done an Application Nation call with the class of 2021. We talked a lot about what to do if you have been deferred. Writing a letter of continued interest to me is the right move as long as you're still feeling very strongly about the institution. Not every single college will let you submit a letter of continued interest after you've been deferred, but most will. Some colleges have some very specific requirements. So for Stanford, for example, if you were deferred, you don't submit your own letter of continued interest. You just answer questions on their admissions portal. In terms of getting feedback, I wouldn't contact the alumni interviewer. They're usually not, they don't have any access to your application, number one. Number two, they're not there to help you with the letter of continued interest. I would really just make sure that you have a clear sense of why you want that institution. If it's Georgetown, you want to take it to the next level beyond what's already in your application. And so I recommend students, if they're going to write a letter of continued interest, to do it sometime early to mid-January. So I wouldn't do it right now. I actually would focus on those regular decision applications or possibly an early decision 2 program, and then focus on writing that letter of continued interest. Getting deferred means students are going to be reevaluated in the regular decision applicant pool. Any new information that comes in, the admissions officer or the admissions committee will take a look at it. So if that letter of continued interest is in the student's application by about mid to late January, that's usually the right time to do it and send it in, and still will get evaluated. Next question. I have a junior and her college choices do not require an ACT or SAT, but her school wants her to take the PSAT. What benefit would this give her taking this test, or should I request for her to not take it as it's just unnecessary testing and stress? So the PSAT, most high schools across the country will offer the PSAT. It was designed initially for high school juniors, but a lot of high schools allow freshmen and sophomores to actually take the PSAT. The PSAT is really just a practice test. That score doesn't get reported to colleges for the college admissions process, but it does help a student prepare for their official test, and it also can qualify the student for national merit. National merit is a scholarship program, and if you do well on the PSAT and get a very high index score within your state, you could be you could be a national merit semifinalist, and you would find that out in September of senior year. So if your child's applying to colleges that have a long-standing test optional policy, if the PSAT is going to cause them a lot of stress, no, it's absolutely not necessary to do it. There are a lot of high schools that are offering the PSAT in January, in addition to many high schools that usually will offer it in October, but this year they're offering it twice. So hopefully students who want to take the PSAT will be able to. Next question, how important are grades first semester of senior year if decisions are pending? They can be extremely important. So if you are a regular decision applicant, almost always the college will require first semester grades of senior year, and they absolutely will be evaluated in the admissions process. For early decision or early action schools, sometimes you can submit your first quarter grades, and if they are really strong, they can absolutely strengthen an application. All right, next question. If a college says common application is received, does that include the optional report if one was submitted through the Common App, or do you have to follow up to make sure everything was received? I don't know about the optional report. That's actually a fairly new report that Common App has added. It allows the college counselor of record to send additional information that way. But usually, if a portal is indicating that everything is received, it's everything that is required. So anything extra may not necessarily be showing up as received, but it's very possible that the admissions office has it. So I would just look to, or at least find out from your counselor when they submitted the optional report. If they got confirmation, that's probably a good sign. Can you negotiate aid awards if your student was accepted early decision? So do you have any leverage? Well, with early decision, we all know it is technically a binding decision. So if you get admitted under an early decision plan, you are expected to enroll. However, if your financial aid award was not as strong as you want it to be or thought it would be, it's really important for the parents, ideally, to contact the admissions office and financial aid office to let them know about it. Usually what's going to end up happening is the family will have to submit additional paperwork or forms, or an appeals process will get started. In terms of leverage, you can't really say, well, this rolling admissions program or this early action program gave me more money, because they know that you're locked in for early decision. But a lot of times they will reevaluate your financial aid award, because the truth of the matter is they would hate to lose a student for financial aid reasons in early decision. So it's always worth checking it out and seeing if you can appeal your decision. Obviously, if you've been admitted early action or regular decision and you've got some great merit offers from other institutions or even need-based financial aid awards, when you're in that situation, my recommendation, if you don't get the award that you want, you take the offer, whether it's merit or need-based financial aid, and you provide that to the college that you want to increase your financial aid award or your merit scholarship. If it's a direct competitor, you usually have a lot more leverage. All right, next question. Hi, Sarah. When is the appropriate time to let regular decision schools know about updates, like a national championship win? So I would say if you've already submitted your application, sometimes it's very easy to provide an update right on the admissions portal. That's probably the easiest way to do that. I wouldn't want you to be updating the portal every single week. So make sure if you're updating the portal with something that it's really, really important. And I would say a national championship is definitely a big deal, and you want to let those colleges know. If you've been deferred to the regular decision applicant pool, it's been a while since you submitted your application. You probably have a couple of updates that you want that college that deferred you to know about. And so the best way to update them is to put it all into that letter of continued interest. Next question. If my SAT score is towards the lower end of the middle 50% range, should I submit or apply test optional? So I often say if you're trying to make a decision about whether or not to submit your scores, you want to look at that middle 50% range of SAT, ACT scores for admitted students. If you're on the lower range, you want to consider a few things. If you're in that lower range of the 50% area range, you want to consider, are you applying early decision, early action, or regular decision? Obviously, in early decision, your odds are better, the acceptance rate is higher. But if it's early action or regular decision, the acceptance rate will drop. It's a more competitive applicant pool, so keep that in mind. You also want to factor in what state you're coming from. If you're coming from the Northeast or California or Florida or Texas, these states are typically overrepresented states in an applicant pool, so the standards and expectations of your application will be higher. You can also consider the program that you're applying to. If it's a STEM-related program or computer science or business, you have to almost expect the test scores are going to be a little bit more on the higher end of that range. You also want to consider race. Students who are coming from underrepresented backgrounds who have scores within the 50% range but maybe on the lower end might be okay. But a majority student coming from New Jersey, my home state, usually very overrepresented in every applicant pool, they might say, you know what, I don't want to take any chances. And because my record is so strong, they might want to apply test optional. All right, next question. Do college admissions use a software application to filter applications? Not typically, no. Most selective colleges use what's called holistic admissions. It means every application is going to be read. The admissions officer is going to be taking notes. They're going to be evaluating not just your grades and your test scores, but your recommendation letters, extracurriculars, your essays, possibly even an interview. If you're applying to a large state university, for example, that really just uses objective criteria like your GPA, test scores, possibly class rank, there could be software that makes some of those decisions a little bit easier. But my guess is admissions officers still have to lay their eyes and at least take a quick look at your application. Next question, speaking of the PSAT, have you gotten any indication about what will happen with cutoff scores for the class of 2022? No, those cutoff scores or index scores, that is what determines national merit semifinalists. So I haven't heard about that. You want to, if you're curious, I would do a search on the internet and look for the index score for your state the last couple of years, at least to get a feel for what it is. It sometimes will go up a point or go down a point, but it generally is going to stay in the same range. Next question, our daughter's first choice is University of Chicago. She applied early action. Should she switch to early decision 2 for better chances? First of all, I love the University of Chicago. It's an incredible institution. They have both, they have early decision 1, early decision 2, early action, and regular decision. Any college that has early action and early decision, they would love, love, love to see that student switch to the early decision pool, because they make out better, because if they admit a student in early decision, they know that student is going to be enrolling. If they admit the student in early action, they could go to Harvard, they could go to Stanford, they could go to Duke. So the chances of enrolling that student go down significantly, and they end up having to admit a lot more students. So most colleges are very amenable to a student switching their application as long as it's before the deadline, ideally. Next question, I was deferred from the University of Georgia. Is it smart to send a lower ACT score with a higher subject subscore in order to raise my super score? I think it depends, and I don't know this for sure, Emily, if the University of Georgia super scores the ACT. If they do, yes, you could submit that other ACT and it could super score your ACT score and make you an even stronger applicant. Yeah, but I don't know for sure if they do. And it's a mixed bag with the ACT and super scoring. With SATs, almost every single college in the country will take your highest math score and highest evidence-based reading and writing score to create your super scored SAT. With the ACT, not every college will do that. They won't take the different sections from different tests to create the highest composite ACT, but a lot will. You just have to check their website. If a college says that an interview is non-evaluative, are they truly non-evaluative and just informational for the applicant's benefit? I always wonder about this. There aren't many colleges that offer non-evaluative interviews. Sometimes they're called informational interviews. They're usually done sometimes by alumni interviewers, sometimes they're offered through the admissions office. Technically, they're not supposed to factor in. I would say as long as it's a positive conversation between the student and the interviewer, I think you're probably fine. But if there are any red flags, I could see that interviewer making a note in the student's application. But there aren't going to be many colleges out there that offer these informational interviews. Almost always, if they offer an interview, it is evaluative. It isn't usually factored into the admissions process as much as you think, whether it's an alumni interview or an interview through the admissions office. Next question. Will applying test optional to highly selected schools be seen as a negative? No, I don't believe so. As long as everything else in your application is extremely strong. So let's say you're applying to a highly selected college and on average, their middle 50% range for SAT scores is, I don't know, like a 1480 to a 1550, pretty high scores. You almost want to equate that to everything else in your application. You know, is your transcript like a 1550 on the SAT? Are your activities and leadership and impact and essays, are they equivalent to that 1550? If you've got a really strong application in all the other areas, it's not going to disadvantage you by applying test optional. And I'm hearing, you know, every single day we're hearing about decisions on the discussion board of Application Nation. That's my private Facebook group. We have multiple ones, but the class of 2021 is the senior group. And we are seeing so many students get admitted to highly selective, very selective, selective colleges with and without test scores. They're also getting merit scholarships with or without test scores this year. If you don't get in early decision, do you still have a chance to get in the next round? Not typically. If you apply early decision and you've been denied, you are not allowed to reapply until the following year, the following admission cycle. If you've been deferred, you would be reevaluated in the regular decision applicant pool. All right, next question. Hello, are ED2 normally announced closer to regular decision announcements? So by then, have the colleges not evaluated regular decision 2? Any big advantages? Huge advantages for early decision 2, I'm gonna be honest. Smaller applicant pool, usually a high acceptance rate, sometimes even higher than early decision 1. The deadlines for early decision 2 programs are usually around January 1st. And because it's such a small applicant pool, they turn things around pretty quickly. So usually within a month, by the beginning of February or mid-February, they've already given out their early decision 2 results. And then they focus all of the rest of their attention on regular decision applications after that. So huge advantages, but you have to be ready to commit to it. And you really have to have been able to see that campus and other campuses to know that you love it. And if you got admitted, you'd be really happy going there. If your child does not get merit money or doesn't receive as much as he or she hoped, is it appropriate to ask about it? It is, but if it's merit, it's usually focused on the student's application. And so I recommend the student reach out to the admissions officer. Sometimes you can appeal for more merit or ask to be considered for merit. It really depends on the institution. If they have a separate program, it may not work, but a lot of times you just have to ask. But again, if you have a better merit scholarship award from a direct competitor, you want to make sure you provide that offer to that other college that you're trying to get more merit money from, or merit money to begin with. Next question. What is your opinion on applying abroad to selective universities in the UK, Canada? Are there accreditations a student should be aware of when selecting a program? Yeah, I actually mentioned this in my blog this week because we have a number of Application Nation class of 2021 students who are applying to international universities, more than usual, I would say. What are some things to keep in mind about international institutions? You know, it's a little bit more straightforward. You know, scores are a big deal, grades are a big deal. If there is a writing portion, it's much more straightforward writing. You know, when it comes to the main essay in the United States, you know, being creative and personal and out of the box and clever is really valued in the admissions process. But if you're applying to the UK, your personal statement needs to just state the facts, and you want to make sure that they're clear and accurate. But in general, I think they're a little bit more objective. And they also, especially for the UK programs, you're not just applying to the university. A lot of times you're actually applying to that specific program. So it's not like a typical liberal arts experience here in the US. If you're applying to economics at Cambridge, for example, that's the program you're going to be in for all 4 years. Whereas in the US, you could change your mind, but you don't declare your major till sophomore year. There's a lot of flexibility and a lot of wiggle room. With the UK institutions especially, you really want to be sure that you're applying to the right program. Are you obligated to study the major you list on your application? No, not usually. If you're applying to a liberal arts program, you can list a major, but typically you're not bound to that major, but you are bound to that liberal arts program, especially if it's a big university with multiple undergraduate schools. Let's say you're applying to the University of Pennsylvania. They have 4 undergraduate schools. They have arts and sciences, that's the liberal arts. Wharton is the business program. They have a nursing school and the engineering school. You indicate on your application which of those 4 schools you want to be considered for, but the majors within them could easily change. So if you're admitted to Penn, you're admitted to one of those 4 undergraduate schools. It's very easy to change majors within that program. Much more difficult to transfer, let's say, from arts and sciences to Wharton or arts and sciences to engineering. All right. Thank you for putting up that blog all about majors. Yeah. All right. Next question. What do you do if you've been deferred from Penn? Well, I would say first focus on, getting the rest of your applications in for regular decision. And then revisit Penn in a couple of weeks, maybe right after January 1st, and decide whether or not it's still your first choice. And if it is, I would consider writing a letter of continued interest. Make sure that your grades for semester are really strong. Those are the 2 big things. If you've been deferred, if your grades are really strong, you've written a really powerful letter of continued interest, you're going to have a much better chance of getting into Penn. But generally speaking, the acceptance rate at Penn and a lot of schools that have an early decision program, the acceptance rate is going to go down a lot in regular decision. So a deferred applicant has about the same chance of admission in regular decision as a student who just applies regular decision. And that's usually sometimes in the single digits. So you just want to be aware of how selective it's going to get in regular decision. But in my experience, the only students that I saw who got admitted after being deferred at Penn when I worked there for a very long time were the students who did extremely well first semester and wrote this really, really, really special letter of continued interest. That wasn't a guarantee, but it sure did help. Are the colleges only interested in the applicant's unweighted GPA and not the weighted GPA? It depends on the college or university that you're applying to. If you're applying to highly selective colleges, most of them are going to recalculate your GPA. So I'll give you some tips about how admissions officers evaluate it. So if I was still an admissions officer at Penn, I would be going from 9th grade all the way up to senior year. I'd look at 9th grade. I count up the number of advanced classes. Let's say the student took 5 core classes and 3 of them were honors. I would list 3 honors classes. I would also indicate the unweighted grades for all 5 core classes. So even though I'm using unweighted grades, the rigor of the curriculum is just as important as the grades. Same thing with 10th grade. Let's say out of the 5 core classes, the student took 2 honors classes and 2 AP classes. I would be making a note, 2 honors, 2 AP classes, and then the grades for all those 5 core classes. For junior year, the student is taking, let's say, 5 APs. That's a big deal. I'd be looking at 5 APs plus the grades. So it's not just the grades, it's the rigor of the curriculum. So a lot of families get really anxious about the fact that colleges will recalculate the GPA. But the fact is you can't get into a highly selective college if you've gotten straight A's, but you haven't taken the most challenging curriculum at your high school. All right. Does a student get better chances when deferred in early decision than to get denied or be put on the wait list in early decision? Let me read over that again. Does a student have a better chance when deferred in early decision than to get denied or be put on the wait list in early decision. I'm not sure what you mean, but I can tell you that if you've been deferred from an early action round, your application will get reevaluated in regular decision. But sometimes a student who applies regular decision gets waitlisted and ends up getting admitted off the wait list. Every year is different. A college sometimes will plan to use the wait list and they hope to use the wait list, and sometimes they don't. So it's hard to predict, to be honest. What if you are waitlisted? What are your chances? I actually think your chances are sometimes, pretty good. I was thinking about Vanderbilt. We were talking about Vanderbilt tonight in our Zoom call. Vanderbilt has early decision 1, early decision 2, and regular decision. And they only admit or deny in early decision 1 or early decision 2. They don't defer to regular decision. So some people believe that you actually have a better chance of getting into Vanderbilt if you apply regular decision. You get waitlisted because they have, over the past couple of years, admitted a good number of students off the wait list. But you've got to just figure out what's right for you. All right. My child is running out of steam, it seems. He is still struggling with essays. I'm worried that time will run out. His Reach College applications are still not done. Ideas to finish strong. Yeah, sometimes students do begin to really get burnt out if they've written a lot of essays already and applied to a lot of schools. What I would do is look at the colleges that are still left to apply. Does the student need to apply to all of them? Can they pare down the list a little bit so it's not as overwhelming? Also, give them a little time, a little space. If they want it that badly, they will turn it on. They will pivot. They will get motivated and finish off those applications. There are a ton of students submitting their applications in regular decision literally on the day of the deadline, and sometimes they need that pressure to perform well. If I've been accepted to my first choice through early action, do I still need to worry about grades? Will they be factored into merit? Well, merit scholarships sometimes are given out at the time the student is accepted. Sometimes they're given out later on in the school year. So you got to make sure that you finish up strong, because even if you're not being considered for merit or you already got your merit scholarship package, they will get sometimes first semester grades, but they will absolutely get your final grades from senior year. If the grades go down, they will contact the student. And technically, if they go down significantly, the student could be facing a really difficult situation. Sometimes an offer of admission can be rescinded if the grades go down significantly. So just be careful. If a student is deferred, what should the letter of continued interest indicate? I say it should be about a page, 3/4 to a full page, single-spaced. Again, as I said, you need to kind of go beyond what's already in your application. When a student submits their early decision or early action application, it could be October or September of senior year. And by the time they write that letter, it's already January. They've gone through a lot, they've experienced a lot, they have a new perspective, they see themselves differently. Sometimes they're a lot more self-aware, so that letter really needs to kind of show that maturity and wisdom. I generally say that at the beginning of your letter, you need to make a personal connection to that college or university. In the body of the letter, you want to provide any updates. By the end of the letter, you want to go back to that same personal connection or personal story that you have, because admissions officers love that, what I call book-ended essay or book-ended letter, where you begin with a story and then you go back to that same story by the end. And oftentimes, students will indicate, if this is still their first choice in that letter of continued interest, sometimes they will actually say, I know it's regular decision. I know I'm not bound to attend because I've been deferred, but if you admit me in regular decision, I will enroll. So sometimes making that declarative statement can be very, very helpful. Next question, if a student does not apply early decision but now feels he has one school he really loves, should he consider writing a letter of enthusiasm for his favorite school? Well, first make sure you look to see. They might have an early decision 2 applicant pool. That would be the smartest move. But if they don't and he or she is in the regular decision applicant pool, number 1, if you love that school, when they have supplemental essays, it absolutely needs to come through in those supplemental essays. Sometimes the college counselor of record can reach out to the admissions officer and say, hey, listen, I know this student did not apply early decision, but this is their clear first choice. Sometimes a student will follow up an email or add something in the portal that will make it clear. I think, for the most part, admissions officers, especially in regular decision, they kind of take it, but they ultimately know the competition. So just indicating that it's your favorite school, it sometimes doesn't necessarily help, but most of all, make sure if it is your favorite school, it's coming through in that supplement. Maybe a few more questions. Hi, my daughter applied to NYU and got waitlisted. Is there hope for admission? So I assume she applied early decision 1. I don't know if they deferred her or waitlisted her, but yes, there still is an opportunity to get admitted in the regular decision round, but your best shot is if you've done well at the beginning of senior year. First semester grades are very important for those deferred or waitlisted students, and also ideally sending in a really powerful letter of continued interest. All right, next question. What is most salient insight from this round for the class of 2022 possible to discern at this point? I would say early decision is shockingly popular this year, and that surprises me because most families were not able to visit all the colleges on their list or any of the colleges, and so a lot of students are making a decision without ever seeing that college. That concerns me. That being said, if campuses begin to open up in the spring and travel restrictions are lifted, I would encourage families to try to visit as many colleges as they can that are reasonable. And ultimately, if there is a clear first choice, I would always recommend applying early decision because the odds are going to be significantly better. The other thing that's surprising is, most of these colleges have gone test optional this year. And again, I think I mentioned it earlier, I'm seeing a lot of students get admitted without test scores and a lot of students getting merit scholarships without test scores. So bravo to those colleges. If a student is rejected from their highly selective early decision school, should that change the student's list to include less competitive schools? I believe so. This was something that I mentioned tonight to our Application Nation group, class of 2021. I said, if you get denied from a reach, a target, a likely school in the early round, or your rolling admissions program, absolutely, you should be reevaluating your college list. It doesn't mean you add more colleges to your list. I would recommend replacing some of those reach colleges with some target and likely schools. How do you think admissions offices are handling the Hail Mary attempts for admissions, those without tests, to more competitive universities? I think every highly selected college is dealing with that. And I think that's why we're hearing of pretty significant increases in the applicant pool, even for early decision programs that you wouldn't expect. So Cornell is up a lot. Duke was up a lot as well. So I do think some students have taken this test optional policy this year to the extreme, because just because you don't submit test scores doesn't mean your chances of admission are going to go up. You always have to have an extremely strong application for every part of it. Every section of the application needs to be extremely strong. You mentioned getting an idea off of if a college is a good fit based on median ACT or SAT scores. Where do we source this? And are there ideas for matching a school? This is a good question, Cam. So I don't look at, like if you search like middle 50% range of admitted students for Emory, I don't trust the blogs or the guidebooks. I go straight to the college's or university's admissions office website. And almost always, they will have a middle 50% range right on their profile on the admissions website. How do third marking period grades factor into college admissions? Do they matter in regular decision? Do colleges ever see them since they aren't included in the mid-year report? So first semester grades will matter in regular decision. Third marking period grades, they're not usually submitted. So even if you're on the wait list, your college counselor wouldn't be submitting those third marking period grades because the first semester grades are going to count a whole lot more in the admissions process. All right, so some things to keep in mind. There are a lot of students that have just heard back from their early decision and early action school. If you've been deferred, you still have a shot, but make sure you're reevaluating your college list. Make sure if you've been denied, you're looking at that college list to make sure you've got some really good target and likely schools that you really, really like. And here's the thing, for all those students who are coming from the classes of 2022, 23, and 24, if you like having answers to your questions on a regular basis, I would encourage you to consider joining Application Nation. The class of 2022 is about to launch in January. If you want to get 20% off of your first month's membership, you want to sign up for the wait list, and we've got information in the comment section below the live feed. So make sure to sign up on the wait list so that you can get that discount off your first month's membership. We'll be launching mid-January, but if you are a student in one of the younger grades, like you are a sophomore or a freshman or parents of sophomores or freshmen, we have a younger group of Application Nation as well. And absolutely, you should be following my Instagram account right now. It is the most exciting week of the year so far. It will get busy again in March. Follow my story. You can see all the acceptances from the class of 2021 Application Nation group. And there's some really, really exciting acceptances that have happened over the past couple of days and weeks and months. So check it out. All right. Good to see you all, and I hope to see you back here in January. Take care. Have a great new year. Bye-bye.